From Dallas, I'm hearing about the system down here in Travis County. And that's got to say something about if that many people, like you said, I mean, are these the outliers, or are the complaints so widespread and so numerous that why is it that I, who live a couple hundred miles away, should even know about these people?
Well, I think in all fairness, the parents should take some responsibility. I mean,
right.
We're trying to take a family situation and put it within the legal system under property contract law. You know,
yeah.
In my opinion, and it's similar. The analogy would be, you know, you want to make pizza by putting it through a meat grinder, okay? Or, you know, so yeah. what ends up coming out the other end?
It's not going to be pizza.
It's not going to be It's not going to be something better than pizza.
Yeah.
So I think when the parents resort to putting their situation into the legal realm, that's the parents' responsibility. You know, and if there's any avenue to turn to besides that,
right,
you should exhaust all of that until you're exhausted before going into that direction.
There was one person that, it was a very interesting case, but up in Rockwall, I went into court watch for somebody, and I made a very brief video, and his ex-wife contacted me via Facebook. And I'm, you know, and it was very, very interesting conversation that we had. It lasted for long time. We had like 22 pages of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I kept on saying to her, are you a Christian? Why don't you go to the church? Mm-hmm. Why don't you go to the church? Now, the church often is not prepared to deal with some of these things. That is one criticism against most churches. But I said, hey, he said, well, we just want the best interest of the child. I said, the best interest of the child will never be found in the courtroom. Mm-hmm. I just said, you know, find something else. Mm-hmm. I said, look, I'm not a professional or anything like this. I said, I can help to mediate if you want. I can, or I know people who can do a better job. Stay out of the courtroom. Mm-hmm. The courtroom is the meat grinder. Mm-hmm. Just what you said. Mm-hmm. And,
well, I mean, that's a term that's not even defined. Nobody knows, and we don't even know
the best interest.
You know,
of the child.
in the case of Jenkins, there was a appellate case called Jenkins. There were, you know, we don't even know what safety and welfare of the child requirements are.
Yeah.
You know, so for the past almost 10 months, my child and I have gone on long trips to North Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, to Yellowstone, to Grand Canyon, to the
and the pictures
various
are wonderful.
beaches.
Some of the pictures are great.
You know, we have a very loving, good attachment. He's, you know, as any parent knows, it's, you know, it's a growing experience for any parent, and you have to adapt as they get older and older and older, and find out how do you field these questions, or you know, when do you just not say a word.
But what you're saying though is this: you have this great attachment, you've got wonderful times. I've seen the pictures, nothing but enjoyment. Mm-hmm. And
he has wonderful friends. In the neighborhood.
And yet, an adversarial legal system wants to destroy that which he has.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that which he has, but that which his friends have with him as well.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to, and what is being recommended, as with several parents in the past, is sudden separation based upon false statements.
Yeah.
Sudden separation of the child from the parent, which is basically inducing trauma.
Yeah.
That's irreparable. He had touched upon the issue of irreparable harm. We didn't follow up on that.
Yeah.
And that will cause irreparable harm.
Yeah.
What do you explain to the child? You know, unless the child really knows the truth.
Right.
And then you take that away from the child, from his friends.
Yeah.
And that also impacts his friends.
Yeah.
You know?
So with regard to that harm, the child is left in question, in limbo in some of those instances, what actually happened.
And also anxious. And self-blaming. You know,
but what's going to
happen next?
There was a testimony given in 2017 by Charlotte Bradshaw of she's now with Kunzfler Law Firm. Mm-hmm. And we were talking with the testimony pertaining to no-fault divorce. Mm-hmm. And what she said is that, you know, because we were trying to repeal it. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, listen, the judges did not want, like, say if the real reason was for the divorce was because of adultery, the judge doesn't want to say that. So he wants to grant a no-fault divorce. So I took it and I said, so you're telling me it's okay for a judge to lie in the best interest of the child? A child, in the best interest of the child, should not be lied to. The child should have adequate explanation. And the child needs to know that both parents love the child, assuming that's the case. And that it's okay for the child to love both parents. But the idea that she was stating, which I found utterly repulsive, is that a judge might need to lie for the best interest of the child. We have a system that allows children to believe lies. And sometimes it's a lie maligning a father or a mother. And the child can have that harm inflicted upon him or her for a lifetime, or maybe later on there's some type of reconciliation, or they see that it wasn't the case. But 20 years may go by, 30 years may go by. I know people that have not seen their kids for their entire lifetime, and the kids don't want to see them, all based on lies.
I think a rule of thumb that's a guiding principle
Yeah.
to that. It's not a treatise or an absolute principle.
Yeah.
Because if the child asks a question, they're ready to hear the answer at
Yeah.
their age-appropriate level
Right.
they can understand.
Right.
But there still has to, I think there's discretion. I think there's still a little bit discretion, because, when you're in these situations, I think it's also fair where you're not answering the question at an age-appropriate level that puts anybody in a bad light.
Yeah.
And it's the system as it's designed is designed to do that.
Yeah.
Parent
But-
attacking parent,
Yeah.
parent faulting other parent.
Right. But there are oftentimes, though, too, that kids know.
They
that-
know.
And the thing is that I do not want to affirm something that goes against what they know to be morally right or wrong.
Well, that's true. I agree with that. And I can remember a statement in Dr. Sherry's report where she puts fault on attempts to insulate the child from a parent conflict. And not a parent's, but a parent, obvious conflict. And we do it all the time.
Right.
We were able to not allow our kids to see conflict by
Right.
not showing it demeanor, not
Right.
saying things that are conflict related. And then she says in her report, but the children can intuitively know. Well, maybe to an extent, but how do you fault a parent for not exposing them to an external expression?
Right. Part of the parental responsibility is to teach your children right and wrong.
True.
And yes, some of the stuff may come into it, some things people may question or whatever, but I know that we have been given the responsibility to rear children to become moral beings, responsible adults later in life. And it's sometimes the system advocates against that. And then they hold you responsible. I heard a legislator yesterday say, well, maybe they need to raise their children better. And I wanted to say, what you've just said, you do not realize that in many instances, a parent is kicked out of a child's life. And now you're going to hold that parent responsible for not raising a child because of a system that you put in place?
Take, for example, DPS cases where, there's drug use or some type of level of abuse, or, more commonly what I encounter in my field, that those cases many times are reunited with that parent.
Yeah.
The parent goes through some rehabilitative requirements. They're not completely separated. There are times when they are. But they're not separated for months and months and months and years and years and years at a time. They go through some rehabilitative processes. The child stays with a family member so they're not exposed, let's say hypothetically, to drug use issue.
Yeah.
The parent goes into rehab, they're abstinent, cleaned up, in recovery.
That's in the cases where this legitimate intervention, but in many of the illegitimate interventions where they're trafficking kids.
Right, yeah. But the point being is that, even that case is not as severe as what goes on in some of the family, in some of the non-DPS case family court cases.
It always amazes me, it's I don't say always, but it amazes me that sometimes hardened criminals have more ability to see their children than good parents who have been eliminated, erased, kicked out of a child's life or their children's lives simply because of a family law situation. And that's going back to the thing that I mentioned about certain people being psychopaths. Maybe that's Okay, that's maybe an offhand comment, but that's what they're doing. It's psychopathic activity, it's sociopath, whatever you want to call it, it's destructive. And, so what I think before we got off on this a little bit, I was just telling people that if you have any opportunity to stay out of family court, and unfortunately, in many instances, you may want to stay out, but your spouse drags you in, stay out of it. And I think that, for the churches, I think the churches need to actually, if you want to talk about telling men to man up and whatever else, church up. Church up.
That's a very good point.
I just hate to see the hypocrisy in it. But anyway, David, I'm so sorry. I do have to leave and get back to another conference.
It's been a pleasure. It really has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking your time and coming by and
Absolutely.
visiting on your road trip to your worldly events.
There we go, yeah.
Stop by anytime.
Absolutely.
Next time we can do some kind of metalworking and have a metalworking show or something.
Hey, there we
like
go,
that.
yeah. Or you can teach me how to play the drums or the guitar or whatever else. Or give me some jujitsu lessons
Well,
or
earlier on,
whatever.
I already got my little time quota on the guitar early this morning.
Got it.
When you were asleep.
Got it.
That's probably the only time I'll be able to do it today.
Got it.
Anyway.
David, thank you once
Yeah,
again.
man, thank you.
Appreciate
It's been
it.
a
Thank you.
pleasure. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely.